What if everything we thought we knew about ancient engineering was just the tip of the iceberg? Picture this massive stone blocks, each weighing as much as a small airplane, fitted together so perfectly you couldn't slide a sheet of paper between them. Underground labyrinths stretching for miles, hidden beneath bustling modern cities, aqueducts that defied gravity, delivering water across impossible distances with nothing but sheer ingenuity. These aren't scenes from a fantasy novel. They're real marvels left behind by civilizations that thrived thousands of years ago, long before cranes, computers, or even the wheel as we know it. And yet their creations still stand today, whispering secrets that modern science struggles to explain. This isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about the human spirit. Think of the hands that carved these stones, the minds that calculated every angle, the generations who dared to dream bigger than the tools they had. How did they move slabs heavier than 10 elephants across mountains? How did they align their temples with the stars down to a fraction of a degree? The deeper you dig, the more questions arise, and the more you realize these weren't just builders. They were artists, astronomers, and engineers whose brilliance rivals anything we've achieved in the modern age. And somehow, their most astonishing techniques have been lost to time, leaving us to piece together the puzzle with awe and frustration. That's exactly why we're diving into 26 jaw-dropping facts about ancient city engineering, each one a testament to what humans can accomplish when curiosity meets determination. From the echoing chambers of Egypt's Great Pyramid to the cliffside wonders of Petra, we'll uncover the hidden genius behind these structures. You'll discover how some ancient cities had plumbing systems more advanced than those in 19th century Europe, how builders mastered earthquake-proof designs centuries before modern science caught up, and why certain techniques still can't be replicated today, even with lasers and steel. So if you've ever stared at an ancient monument and wondered, how on earth did they do that? You're about to get some answers that will leave you even more amazed. Buckle up, history is far more incredible than you were taught. The Great Pyramid's alignment isn't just impressive, it's downright baffling. This colossal structure, built over 4,500 years ago, points to true north with an error margin of just 1/15 of a degree. To put that in perspective, modern architects using laser-guided tools would struggle to match that precision. Even more mind-blowing, the pyramid's other three sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions east, west, and south, as if the builders had a bird's-eye view of the planet. So how did they pull it off? One theory suggests they tracked the stars, using the circular motion of constellations like the Big Dipper to pinpoint north over time. Others believe they relied on the sun's shadow, marking its path during the equinoxes. But here's the catch: both methods would require not just patience, but an understanding of astronomy far beyond what historians thought possible for that era. Some researchers even argue the Egyptians might have used a now-lost tool, something akin to an ancient theodolite, to achieve such surgical accuracy. And the mysteries don't stop there. The pyramid's base is leveled to within 2 centimeters, despite spanning over 5 hectares. That's like laying a football field so flat you couldn't slide a coin under any corner. Combine that with the alignment, and you're looking at a structure that defies logic, built without wheels, iron tools, or even a written number system as we know it. It's no wonder some call the Great Pyramid the world's oldest enigma, a silent challenge from the past that still dares us to unravel its secrets. Now, imagine standing in the desert at night, staring up at those same stars the Egyptians used. The same stars that guided them to create something so precise we're still scratching our heads today. That's the magic of ancient engineering. It doesn't just show us what they built, but how little we truly understand about their world. And if that doesn't make you question everything you thought you knew about history, just wait, because the next fact is even more astonishing. High in the Andes Mountains, Machu Picchu clings to a ridge between two earthquake-prone peaks, yet after 5 centuries of tremors, its walls still stand unbroken. The secret lies in stones that seem almost alive, shifting and settling like puzzle pieces whenever the ground shakes. This isn't just luck, it's engineering genius. The Incas carved each granite block with intentional slight curves, so when fitted together, they interlock with just enough flexibility to absorb seismic shocks. Modern engineers call this dynamic masonry, a technique so effective that some of these walls don't even need mortar. The stones grip each other through pure geometry. But the innovations go deeper. Walk through the ruins and you'll notice something strange. Trapezoidal doors and windows wider at the base than the top. This wasn't an aesthetic choice, it's earthquake armor. Unlike rectangular openings that crack under stress, the trapezoid shape redistributes force outward, keeping walls intact. Even the city's terraces play a role, acting like shock absorbers by breaking up seismic waves as they travel uphill. It's a symphony of small details working together, proving the Incas didn't just build for their time, they built for eternity. What's truly humbling, they achieved this without metal tools, wheels, or even a written language to blueprint their designs. Instead, they relied on generations of trial and error, observing how smaller structures weathered quakes and refining their methods. Some scholars believe they even tested their masonry by simulating tremors, piling stones deliberately, then shaking them to see which arrangements held. This wasn't just construction, it was a dialogue with the land itself, a lesson in listening to the Earth's warnings and responding with innovation. And Machu Picchu isn't alone. Across the ancient world, engineers turned disasters into breakthroughs. In Turkey, the Byzantines mixed crushed pottery into their mortar to make concrete lighter and more flexible, a trick still used today in skyscrapers. In China, builders suspended temple roofs on wooden brackets that swayed like tree branches during quakes. These weren't isolated flashes of brilliance. They were threads in a global tapestry of ingenuity, woven long before the word engineering even existed. So next time you see an ancient wall, look closer. Those grooves and angles, they're not just artistry, they're survival. A coded message from the past, reminding us that resilience isn't about resisting nature's power, but dancing with it. And if that doesn't make you see history's so-called primitive builders in a whole new light, just wait until you hear about the Roman concrete that grows stronger underwater. Pantheon's dome has stood for nearly 2,000 years without steel reinforcement, a feat modern engineers still can't replicate. What's their secret? Roman concrete doesn't just endure, it heals itself. When seawater seeps into tiny cracks, it triggers a chemical reaction with volcanic ash mixed into the material, forming new mineral fibers that stitch the gaps back together. It's like the concrete has its own immune system, fighting decay with every passing century. This wasn't dumb luck. The Romans were master alchemists, tweaking recipes through trial and error. They noticed that adding volcanic sand from the Bay of Naples made their harbor walls thrive in saltwater while others crumbled. But here's the twist, they didn't know why it worked. They simply observed, experimented, and perfected. Today, labs worldwide are racing to decode their formula, using X-rays and electron microscopes to find what the Romans discovered by accident. The implications are staggering. Modern concrete starts degrading in decades, yet Roman piers still stand strong after 2 millennia of waves and storms. Some researchers believe the key lies in the volcanic ash's rare minerals, which create a crystalline structure when wet, a process that actually strengthens the concrete over time. Others point to the Romans' meticulous mixing techniques, layering materials in precise ratios we've only recently begun to understand. But perhaps the real lesson isn't in the recipe itself, but in the mindset behind it. The Romans didn't have chemistry textbooks or particle analyzers. They had curiosity and patience, willing to test countless combinations until nature whispered back the right answer. That's why their concrete outlived empires, because they built not just for their generation, but for ones they'd never see. And as our own crumbling infrastructure begs for solutions, we're finally learning to listen to those ancient whispers. Now imagine if we could bottle that knowledge today. Bridges that repair themselves after earthquakes, coastal cities armored against rising seas. It's not science fiction, it's buried in the past, waiting for us to catch up. And while we reverse engineer their brilliance, one thing becomes clear. Sometimes the most advanced technology isn't the newest, but the smartest. Which makes you wonder what other ancient secrets are hiding in plain sight, just waiting to be rediscovered. Buried beneath the rolling hills of Turkey's Cappadocia region lies an ancient marvel that would make any modern architect's jaw drop. Derinkuyu, an underground city carved 8 stories deep into volcanic rock. This wasn't just a few tunnels or storage rooms. It was a fully functional metropolis capable of sheltering 20,000 people for months at a time. Picture a honeycomb of living quarters, stables, churches, even wineries, all hidden beneath the Earth's surface. But the real genius, how they kept this subterranean world alive. Ventilation shafts, some stretching over 50 meters to the surface, delivered fresh air to every level, while cleverly designed vertical chimneys created a natural airflow system. Smoke from kitchens and torches would rise through these channels, pulling stale air out and drawing in oxygen, a passive air conditioning system centuries before the concept even had a name. Even more impressive, the wells. Instead of relying on external water sources that could be poisoned or cut off by invaders, Derinkuyu's builders tapped into underground rivers, creating a self-sustaining water supply that flowed through hand-carved aqueducts. And then there were the defenses. Massive circular stone doors, each weighing up to half a ton, could roll across tunnel entrances like ancient security gates. Escape routes zigzagged for miles, connecting Derinkuyu to other underground cities in the region, a network so vast, less than 10% has been fully explored. Some tunnels were designed with sudden drops or narrow twists to slow pursuers, while others had hidden chambers for ambushes. This wasn't just a hiding place, it was a fortress engineered for survival. What's haunting is how little we know about its creators. The Phrygians may have started carving it around 3,000 years ago, but later cultures, Persians, Byzantines, early Christians, expanded it over centuries. Without written records, we're left with whispers in the stone, soot marks from oil lamps, grooves where livestock were tied, indentations from millstones grinding grain in the dark. These aren't just artifacts, they're echoes of daily life in a world where safety meant going underground. Now imagine the scale of labor. Every room, every staircase, every air shaft chiseled by hand with nothing but simple metal tools. The volume of rock removed would fill over 200 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and yet the precision is staggering. Walls were angled to distribute weight, preventing collapses. Staircases spiraled to conserve space. Even the temperature remained a constant 13 degrees Celsius year-round, thanks to the insulating properties of the volcanic tough rock. Here's the spine-tingling question. If Derinkuyu could house 20,000, how many other underground cities might still lie undiscovered? Nearby, archaeologists have mapped at least 40 smaller complexes, and locals tell stories of tunnels stretching all the way to the Black Sea. With ground-penetrating radar revealing new chambers every few years, it's clear we've only scratched the surface, literally. So next time you walk across a field or a quiet hillside, pause for a second. Beneath your feet, there might be entire cities waiting in the dark, silent monuments to human ingenuity and the timeless instinct to survive. And if that doesn't make you see the Earth itself as one giant mystery box, just wait until you hear about the floating gardens of Tenochtitlan. Standing at the base of Sacsayhuamán's walls feels like staring at a giant's jigsaw puzzle, except these puzzle pieces weigh as much as blue whales, and they've been locked together without mortar for over 600 years. The fortress's most massive stones stretch 12 meters tall, with some weighing close to 200 tons. That's heavier than 3 fully loaded semi-trucks. Yet somehow, the Inca builders shaped each one to curve seamlessly into its neighbors, creating walls so precise that 16th century Spanish conquerors assumed demons must have helped. But the real magic lies in the details. Run your hand along the joints and you won't find gaps, just undulating surfaces that kiss so tightly, even centuries of earthquakes haven't budged them. Modern engineers have tried to replicate this with laser-cut granite, yet they still can't match the perfection. How did the Incas achieve such surgical precision with nothing but bronze tools and stone hammers? One radical theory suggests they might have used plant-based acids to temporarily soften the rock, molding it like clay before it hardened again. Ancient texts mention herbs with mysterious properties, and some Andean traditions still speak of stone-bleeding plants that could alter solid surfaces. Then there's the transportation mystery. These megaliths were quarried from mountains over 20 miles away, across terrain so steep, modern forklifts would struggle. The Incas had no wheels, no draft animals stronger than llamas, just manpower and ingenuity. Some researchers think they might have leveraged glacial moraines, sliding stones atop polished mud tracks during rainy seasons. Others point to intricate systems of ropes and log rollers, with hundreds of workers coordinating pulls in rhythm. But what truly stumps experts is how they lifted these blocks into place. The walls stack like a staggered staircase, with each upper stone perfectly balanced over the one below. One misstep and the entire structure could have collapsed. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the wall's curvature. Unlike straight edges that concentrate stress, THESE, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, interlocking shapes distribute weight like a woven basket, making the entire structure flex during tremors. It's earthquake engineering so advanced it rivals today's seismic retrofitting, yet it was designed by people who supposedly hadn't even invented the arch. Even the angles aren't random. Each corner is cut at precise inclinations that align with solstice sunrises, suggesting the builders fused astronomy with masonry. What's lost in most history books is the human cost of such precision. Imagine the trial and error, the generations of artisans refining their craft, the failed attempts buried beneath the soil. Some stones show abandoned carving marks, hinting at experiments that didn't quite work. Others have tiny protrusions left on their backsides, possibly handles for repositioning during construction. These aren't just rocks, they're resumes, documenting skills passed down through whispers and muscle memory. And here's the kicker, Sacsayhuamán wasn't unique. Across the Andes, sites like Ollantaytambo and Pisac showcase similar masonry, proving this wasn't a fluke, it was a science we've yet to fully decode. Spanish chroniclers wrote that Inca rulers would demand a single thread to be slid between stones as a quality test. If it passed, the wall stood. If not, workers dismantled and rebuilt it. That's not just craftsmanship, it's obsession. So next time someone calls ancient people primitive, point them to these walls. No cranes, no computers, just minds that turned mountains into masterpieces. And if that doesn't make you question what else our ancestors knew, just wait until you hear how the Nabateans carved an entire city from a desert cliff without breaking a sweat. Mohenjo-Daro wasn't just a city, it was a sanitation revolution carved in brick. Walk its streets 4,500 years ago, and you'd find something unimaginable in most of the world until the Industrial Age. A network of covered drains running beneath every neighborhood, complete with manholes for maintenance. These weren't open gutters or simple trenches. They were carefully engineered channels with sloping floors to keep waste flowing, shielded by brick arches to contain odors and block debris. But the real marvel, nearly every house had its own bathroom, with toilets that flushed wastewater directly into the city's underground system. That's right, Indus Valley residents had indoor plumbing when the pyramids were still freshly built. The genius wasn't just in the pipes but in the foresight. Unlike later civilizations that treated sewage as an afterthought, Mohenjo-Daro's planners designed the entire city around hygiene. Streets followed a precise grid, ensuring drains could slope uniformly toward collection points. Houses were raised on platforms, preventing floods from contaminating living spaces. Even the bricks were standardized, their uniform size and shape making construction faster while creating seamless joints to prevent leaks. Archaeologists have found evidence of grease traps to filter oils and sedimentation tanks that let solid waste settle before water flowed onward. This wasn't just functional, it was a masterclass in public health engineering. What's haunting is how much knowledge vanished. When the Indus Valley civilization declined, their sanitation wisdom faded with it. For millennia afterward, cities like London and Paris dumped waste into open streets, leading to cholera outbreaks that killed millions. It wasn't until the 1800s that modern engineers rediscovered covered drainage, a concept Mohenjo-Daro had perfected before the wheel was common in Europe. The unanswered question lingers: how did they maintain this system without modern tools? Some speculate they used teams of workers with bronze scrapers to clear blockages, while others point to clever design, like curved drain junctions that reduced buildup. But perhaps the most striking lesson is cultural. Excavations reveal no grand palaces or temples dominating the cityscape. Instead, resources flowed into communal infrastructure. In a world where ancient rulers often prioritized monuments over livability, the Indus Valley chose differently. Their legacy isn't just in what they built, but in what they valued, a society where clean streets mattered as much as grand art. Now picture this: workers in loincloths laying bricks with the same precision as modern masons, all to channel water nobody would ever see. That's the paradox of their brilliance. The most advanced parts of their city were literally underground, invisible to daily life yet vital to its survival. It makes you wonder how many other civilizations buried their best ideas beneath the soil, waiting for us to dig them up. And if we'd listened to their example sooner, how much suffering could we have spared? The answers might still be down there, hidden in the layers of forgotten cities, whispering that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about remembering what we once knew. The hanging gardens of Babylon dangle between myth and reality like a mirage in the desert. Ancient texts describe terraced gardens rising 75 feet into the air, lush with exotic trees that seem to float above the arid plains. But here's the puzzle: how do you keep a mountain of plants alive in a land where temperatures soar and rivers flow far below? The answer lies in what might be history's most ambitious irrigation system, a network of screws, pumps, and reservoirs that defied the limits of 6th century BC technology. Imagine the challenge. Water had to climb from the Euphrates River to the garden's highest tier, a vertical journey equivalent to lifting liquid up a 7-story building. Greek historians like Strabo claimed the Babylonians used a chain pump, a loop of buckets mounted on a rotating wheel powered by laborers or oxen. Others suggest an Archimedes screw, though this predates Archimedes by centuries. The most compelling theory involves a hidden aqueduct system where water flowed through clay pipes sealed with bitumen, driven upward by pressure from lower cisterns. This wouldn't just be plumbing, it would be hydraulic engineering on par with Roman achievements 1,000 years later, but the real stroke of genius. The garden's structure itself. Some reconstructions propose hollow columns packed with absorbent materials like reeds and soil, acting like giant wicks to draw moisture upward through capillary action. Picture a sponge the size of a palace, silently sucking water to the roots of hanging fig trees and vines. Terraces weren't just for beauty, they created microclimates with shade from upper levels reducing evaporation below. And if recent excavations are correct, the gardens might not have been in Babylon at all, but near Nineveh, where Assyrian engineers built elaborate water-raising devices for royal parks. The controversy only deepens the mystery. No physical traces of the gardens have been found in Babylon, leading some scholars to dismiss them as legend. Yet clay tablets describe Nebuchadnezzar II pride in his unrivaled palace, and the Greeks who rarely praised foreign wonders wrote of them with awe. Maybe the truth lies in the middle. Perhaps the gardens existed, but not as towering fantasylands. Instead, they could have been sophisticated rooftop gardens fed by the same gravity-defying systems that watered Babylon's ziggurats. What's undeniable is the legacy of the idea. From Persian qanats to Renaissance fountain gardens, every culture that tried to make deserts bloom stood on the shoulders of this ancient dream. The hanging gardens remind us that engineering isn't just about function, it's about defiance, turning sand into soil, gravity into a tool, and proving that even in the harshest places, life can flourish if you're clever enough to coax it. And if that doesn't make you look at your wilting houseplants with newfound respect, just wait until you hear how the Khmer Empire built a water city in the jungle. From the air, Peru's Nazca Desert looks like a colossal sketchbook left open by giants. Enormous geometric shapes, spirals, trapezoids, and lines so straight they could rival laser beams, stretch across nearly 200 square miles of rugged terrain. The longest single line runs arrow straight for over 9 miles, a feat that would challenge modern surveyors with GPS. Yet these geoglyphs were carved over 2,000 years ago by people who had no way to see their own work from above. The precision is staggering. Researchers using satellite imagery discovered that many lines deviate less than 4 inches over a mile, an error margin of just 0.02%. Even more perplexing, the terrain isn't flat. These lines march unbroken across hills and valleys, maintaining their alignment as if the earth itself bent to the artist's will. Some archaeologists think the Nazca used simple wooden stakes and ropes to plot their designs, stretching cords between markers to keep lines straight. Others suggest they might have leveraged natural landmarks or celestial bodies as guides, aligning their work with the sun or distant mountain peaks. But the real mystery isn't how they did it, it's why. One theory claims the lines formed a vast astronomical calendar, with certain shapes pointing to solstice sunrises or constellations like the Pleiades. Another proposes they were ritual pathways walked during ceremonies to invoke rain from the parched skies. Then there's the wilder idea that they served as landing markers for, well, let's just say non-earthly visitors. But the most haunting explanation might be the simplest: water. recent studies reveal many lines converge on underground aquifers, suggesting they could have been part of a massive hydrological map. In a desert where water was life, marking its hidden sources would have been priceless knowledge. Some trapezoids even funnel toward fissures where mist rises at dawn, possibly guiding people to morning dew collection points. The Nazca might have been engineering survival into the very dirt beneath their feet. What's often overlooked is the sheer audacity of their ambition. These weren't small doodles, they were landscape-scale declarations meant to endure. The Nazca removed rust-colored surface stones to expose lighter soil beneath, creating contrast that lasts millennia because the region gets almost no rain to erode it. They essentially treated an entire desert as their canvas, trusting time wouldn't wash their work away. And here's the twist: we may never know their true purpose. Unlike pyramids or temples, the lines leave no artifacts to study, no inscriptions to decipher. They're a message without a key, a question whispered across centuries. Maybe that's why they captivate us, not just as engineering marvels, but as riddles. Standing in the desert, you can almost feel the presence of those ancient surveyors, kneeling in the dust, plotting lines only the sky would ever see. It makes you wonder, what are we building today that future civilizations will stare at, just as baffled as we are now? Angkor Wat's towering spires might steal the spotlight, but the real marvel lies beneath your feet, an aquatic labyrinth so vast, it turned a monsoon-soaked jungle into a thriving metropolis. Picture this: nearly 500 square miles of canals, reservoirs, and moats, all meticulously designed to tame the wild Mekong River's floods and stretch every drop of water through months of drought. At its heart, the West Barre Reservoir alone held over 50 million cubic meters of water, enough to fill 20,000 Olympic swimming pools. This wasn't just a temple complex, it was a hydraulic empire built by the Khmer civilization 1,000 years ago with nothing but bronze tools and human ingenuity. The secret to their success: a dance with nature, not a fight against it. Instead of resisting the seasonal deluges, Khmer engineers channeled the floods into massive storage tanks like the East Barre, then released water gradually through a network of canals to irrigate rice paddies year-round. Their moats weren't just for defense, they acted as cooling systems, stabilizing temple foundations in the swampy ground while reflecting the heavens in their still waters. Even the temple's iconic concentric galleries served a dual purpose. Their step design funneled rainwater into underground cisterns, blending sacred architecture with utility. But how did they maintain such precision without surveying tools or blueprints? Archaeologists have found clues in the carvings, bas-reliefs showing teams of workers dredging canals with woven baskets, and inscriptions detailing the water lords who oversaw distribution. The Khmer likely used bamboo poles and weighted cords to level their reservoirs, while gravity did the rest. Their masterstroke was the Phnom system, artificial hills that doubled as flood gauges. When waters reached certain marks on these mounds, gates would open or close to balance the flow. It was a living, breathing system, adjusted season by season through generations of observation. The true genius, though, lies in what happened when the system failed. Soil cores reveal that after centuries of stability, sediment clogged the canals, likely from deforestation upstream. Without modern dredging machines, the Khmer couldn't keep up. The lesson: their engineering was brilliant, but it depended on harmony with the environment. When that balance broke, so did the civilization. Today, scientists are reviving these ancient techniques to combat modern droughts. In Cambodia's rice fields, farmers have reopened 11th century canals, finding they work better than concrete alternatives. Meanwhile, NASA satellites have mapped Angkor's grid from space, revealing patterns that rival modern water systems. It's a humbling reminder: sometimes the most advanced solutions aren't new inventions, but rediscovered wisdom. Standing at the edge of the Tonle Sap Lake, where Khmer engineers once redirected entire rivers, you realize something profound. Angkor Wat stones may awe us, but its real legacy flows silently through those ancient canals, a testament to humans who didn't just build monuments, but engineered resilience into the very landscape. And if that doesn't make you rethink what progress really means, wait until you see how the Maya turned swamps into floating farms. The Lion Gate of Mycenae doesn't just guard a ruined city, it guards a mystery. That single lintel stone above the entrance, weighing more than 20 tons, seems to defy logic. Imagine trying to lift a loaded garbage truck onto a second-story roof without cranes or pulleys. Yet somehow, 3,300 years ago, the Mycenaeans did exactly that, wedging the colossal block perfectly between two towering walls with joints so tight, you couldn't slip a razor blade between them. But the gate is just the beginning. Wander through the ruins and you'll find Cyclopean walls named because later Greeks thought only mythical giants could have moved such boulders. Some stones here weigh over 100 tons, fitted together like a dry stone puzzle with no mortar. The real shock, these aren't rough-hewn rocks. Look closer and you'll see subtle curves carved into each surface, allowing them to interlock with neighbors during earthquakes. Modern engineers call this polygonal masonry, a technique so effective that these walls have survived millennia of tremors that flattened later Greek and Roman structures. How did they achieve this? One clue lies in mysterious U-shaped grooves found on some blocks, possibly slots for wooden levers or ropes used to pivot stones into place. Others think they might have used earthen ramps, slowly raising stones with log rollers until they could be nudged sideways onto their final positions. But the most tantalizing theory involves water. Mycenaean artifacts show advanced knowledge of hydraulics, and some researchers suggest they could have floated megaliths on artificial ponds, using buoyancy to reduce their effective weight. Yet the Lion Gate hides another secret. Those famous lion sculptures flanking the column, they're not just decoration. The missing heads were likely made of precious metal, acting as a giant sundial. At certain times of day, shadows would align with carvings on the threshold, marking solstices or sacred dates. This wasn't just a doorway, it was a celestial calendar in stone. Beyond the gate, Mycenae's engineers left more puzzles. Underground cisterns with staircases spiraling deep into bedrock, ensuring water supply during sieges. Beehive-shaped tombs like the treasury of Atreus, with acoustics so precise a whisper at the entrance can be heard clearly 40 feet inside. Even their roads were revolutionary, paved with crushed stone and graded to drain rainwater, a concept Europe wouldn't rediscover for another 2,000 years. What's haunting is how much we've forgotten. The Mycenaeans left no engineering manuals, just these silent stone testimonies. Their Linear B script, only deciphered in the 1950s, records inventories of chariots and olive oil, not construction secrets. Perhaps the real marvel isn't the stones they moved, but the knowledge they took with them when their civilization collapsed. Walking among these ruins, you can't help but wonder, if this is what they built with bronze tools, what could they have achieved if history had given them more time? And that's the magic of Mycenae. Every cracked block asks a question, every perfect joint hints at answers we're still piecing together. It's a reminder that the ancient world wasn't just a prelude to modernity. It was a parallel universe of ingenuity, where engineers solved problems we're only now beginning to understand. So the next time someone calls something state-of-the-art, smile, because chances are the Mycenaeans did it better 3 millennia ago. And if that doesn't make you look at a simple stone wall with new respect, just wait until you hear how the Persians built air-conditioned palaces in the desert. Stretching 2.5 kilometers through the heart of Teotihuacan, the Avenue of the Dead isn't just a road. It's a celestial runway. On 2 days each year, the setting sun sinks directly down its center like a molten coin rolling into a slot, perfectly framed by the pyramid of the moon at one end and the Ciudadela's temple at the other. This isn't coincidence, it's geometry carved in stone. What's staggering is that the entire city grid aligns with this axis. Its streets and structures offset exactly 15.5 degrees east of true north, a deliberate angle that syncs with cosmological events modern archaeologists are still decoding. The precision goes beyond solar alignments. Stand atop the Pyramid of the Sun at dawn on August 12th, and you'll witness the rising sun crest directly over the distant peak of Cerro Gordo, a sacred mountain believed to hold spiritual significance. Even more remarkably, the three major pyramids form a near-perfect replica of Orion's belt's celestial pattern, mirroring the same alignment found in Egypt's Giza Plateau. But here's the twist. Teotihuacan's builders achieved this without compasses, theodolites, or written records, just generations of naked-eye astronomy and painstaking trial and error. How did they pull it off? One theory points to the pecked crosses, small circular depressions carved into plaza floors throughout the city. These may have served as ancient survey markers, used with Nomen's shadow-casting rods to track the sun's path. By marking solstice and equinox shadows over years, they could have mapped celestial mechanics onto the landscape. Others suggest they used the avenue itself as a giant sighting tool, lining up wooden posts or smoke signals to extend sightlines across the valley. The real marvel is the urban planning. Unlike organic cities that grow haphazardly, Teotihuacan was plotted as a unified design around 200 BC, with every structure adhering to the sacred grid. Even the sewage system follows the alignment, with underground channels running parallel to the avenue's axis. This suggests the builders didn't just track stars, they engineered an entire cosmology into stone and mortar, turning the city into a clock, calendar, and temple fused together. What chills modern researchers is the unanswered question: why this specific alignment? Some scholars tie it to agricultural cycles, as the August alignment coincides with the start of the rainy season. Others see ritual significance, noting that the avenue's name, given later by the Aztecs, evokes the underworld journey of the dead. The most compelling evidence comes from recent LiDAR scans revealing hidden tunnels beneath the pyramids, aligned with the same 15-degree orientation, as if the entire city were a mirror of both heaven and the subterranean realm. Teotihuacan's silent stones whisper a radical idea. Ancient urban planning wasn't just about function, but about weaving time and space into architecture. While modern cities fight nature with steel grids, here, the streets danced with the cosmos, and perhaps that's the most humbling lesson, that a civilization without our tools might have understood harmony with the universe in ways we're still struggling to measure. The foundation stones of Baalbek's Temple of Jupiter don't just defy logic, they mock it. Picture a single slab weighing 800 tons, the equivalent of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jets. Now imagine lifting that slab 20 feet in the air and slotting it into place with the precision of a watchmaker. This isn't science fiction. It's the reality of a 2,000-year-old Lebanese temple, whose construction secrets remain one of history's most stubborn puzzles. The mystery begins at the quarry half a mile away. There, the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman still lies partially carved from bedrock, an abandoned megalith weighing an estimated 1,200 tons. Even with modern machinery, moving something this colossal would require hydraulic trailers and reinforced roads. Yet the Romans, or whoever built Baalbek's earliest layers, somehow transported even heavier stones across rugged terrain without wheels or pulleys. How? One theory suggests they used wooden sledges lubricated with olive oil, dragging blocks along temporary roads made of compacted earth. Experiments show this could work for smaller stones. But the physics of moving 800-ton monsters, the friction alone would crush any known ancient sled. Another idea involves counterweighted levers where teams slowly walked stones upright in increments. But that doesn't explain how they hoisted blocks onto elevated platforms. The most radical proposal, a lost form of harmonic vibration, where sound waves temporarily reduce the stone's effective weight, a technique hinted at in some obscure medieval texts. Then there's the placement precision. These megaliths interlock with such tight joints that not even a needle could slip through. Some show evidence of advanced clamping systems, with molten metal poured into carved grooves to fuse stones together as it cooled. Even more baffling is the quarry's elevation slightly higher than the temple site. This means builders didn't just move the stones horizontally, they controlled their descent with near-perfect accuracy. Perhaps the greatest enigma is the timeline. While Romans later expanded Baalbek, the megalithic foundation predates their arrival by centuries. Local legends speak of a race of giants, while engineers whisper about pre-flood civilizations with forgotten technologies. The truth may be simpler and more profound. Recent studies of Egyptian obelisk transport suggest ancient cultures might have mastered large-scale teamwork to an extent we underestimate. Imagine thousands of workers coordinating with ropes, rollers, and rhythm, turning impossible tasks into months of meticulous labor. Standing beside these stones, you're faced with a humbling thought. We've spent centuries congratulating ourselves on human progress, yet these silent blocks still hold secrets we can't replicate. Maybe the real question isn't how they moved them, but why we ever assumed they couldn't. After all, the greatest ancient technologies weren't always about tools. They were about time, patience, and a refusal to accept limits. And if that doesn't make you rethink what primitive really means, just wait until you hear how the Nabateans carved Petra's treasury into a cliff face without scaffolding. Buried beneath the earth for over 2,000 years, the Terracotta army stands as one of history's most astonishing feats of mass production. 8,000 unique soldiers, each crafted with meticulous detail, yet assembled with the efficiency of a modern factory. What's truly mind-blowing isn't just the scale, but the method. Artisans used modular techniques akin to today's assembly lines, mixing standardized parts with custom craftsmanship to achieve both speed and individuality. Heads, limbs, and torsos were molded from preset clay templates, then combined like ancient Lego pieces to create distinct figures. But here's the twist: no two faces are alike. Archaeologists have identified over 100 different ear shapes, 40 nose styles, and countless hairstyles, each subtly adjusted by hand to give every warrior a unique identity. The logistics behind this operation would impress even contemporary manufacturers. Pits near the mausoleum reveal workshops divided into specialized zones, one team mixing clay to a precise consistency, another sculpting armor plates, others assembling torsos or firing finished pieces in colossal kilns. Chemical analysis shows the clay sources were local, but the knowledge was anything but provincial. Artisans employed slip casting, a technique where liquid clay was poured into molds, a method still used in ceramics today. Yet they didn't stop at efficiency. Details like fingernails, eyelashes, and even the tread on boots were added individually, blurring the line between mass production and fine art. How did they maintain quality control across thousands of statues? Hidden markings on the warriors' bodies tell the story. Small inscriptions, names or symbols suggest a signature system where workshops or individual craftsmen took responsibility for their work. Some theories propose competitive teams, each striving to outdo the others in detail and realism. Even the paint, now mostly faded, followed a rigorous system. Layers of lacquer under vibrant mineral pigments, applied in sequences that matched military ranks. A general's armor might gleam with crushed malachite green, while infantrymen wore simpler earth tones. The real genius lies in what this reveals about ancient industrialization. While we credit Henry Ford for assembly lines, the Qin dynasty perfected a version 2 millennia earlier, not for profit but for eternity. These weren't just statues, they were an emperor's eternal god, demanding both uniformity and individuality on an unprecedented scale. And perhaps that's the most haunting lesson, that innovation isn't always about inventing something new, but rediscovering how much our ancestors could achieve with nothing but clay, fire, and limitless ambition. The Parthenon's flawless facade is a masterclass in deception, one so clever it tricks your eyes into seeing perfection where none exists. Look closely at those majestic columns, and you'll notice something unsettling: they're not straight. Each one swells slightly at the center, tapering gently toward the top, while the entire temple platform curves upward at the edges like a shallow smile. This isn't erosion or poor craftsmanship, it's a deliberate optical illusion called intosses, engineered 2,500 years ago to combat a quirk of human vision. Here's the paradox: if the Parthenon's architects had built it with truly straight lines, our brains would perceive it as sagging. Distance flattens perspective, making parallel columns appear to pinch inward. The Greeks anticipated this, countering it with subtle curves that create the illusion of geometric purity. But the genius doesn't stop there. The columns also tilt inward by just over 2 inches, a calculated lean that makes the temple seem more stable against the Athenian sky. Even the spacing between columns varies: wider at the center, narrower at the corners, another trick to enhance symmetry when viewed from below. Step back further and the refinements multiply. The stylobate, the temple's base, arcs upward nearly 4 inches at the center of each side, preventing rainwater from pooling while making the structure appear to rise dynamically against the horizon. Every measurement was a negotiation between mathematics and psychology, a dance of stone and sight. Modern architects call these counter-perspective techniques, but to the Greeks, they were simply the art of building for human eyes, not abstract ideals. What's staggering is how they achieved this without lasers or computer models. Some scholars believe they used stretched cords and weighted plumb lines to plot curves, while others point to surviving clay templates that may have guided stonecutters. The real secret, though, might lie in their philosophy. Greek builders saw temples as living entities, meant to interact with viewers emotionally as much as physically. Those slight bulges in the columns, they mimic the muscular tension of a standing athlete, making cold marble feel alive. The Parthenon wasn't alone in this visual sorcery. Across the ancient Mediterranean, builders employed similar tricks. Egyptian obelisks taper exponentially toward their peaks to appear uniformly tall from below. Roman amphitheaters like the Colosseum use progressively slender columns on upper levels to maintain visual harmony. Even Mayan pyramids play with perspective. Their staircases grow steeper near the top, making summits seem higher than they are. This raises a profound question. Did ancient architects understand human perception better than we do? Today, we rely on digital models to predict how buildings will look, yet the Greeks eyeballed corrections with chisels and intuition. Perhaps their greatest innovation wasn't in the stones they carved, but in recognizing that truth and beauty live in the space between what is and what seems. Walking around the Parthenon, you realize every curve is a conversation, a whisper from the past reminding us that sometimes to build the perfect, you must first master the art of the imperfect. The Grand Canal isn't just a waterway, it's a liquid highway carved across China's spine, bending rivers to human will 25 centuries before modern engineering. Stretching from Beijing to Hangzhou, this 1,100-mile marvel didn't just connect cities, It unified an empire with locks and channels so precisely engineered, they put 18th century Europe to shame. But here's what textbooks rarely mention. Building it required solving a puzzle that stumped engineers for generations: how to move water uphill without pumps. The answer lies in a system of double gate locks, invented 1,000 years before their European counterparts. Picture this: when a boat approached a rising elevation, workers would seal it between two massive wooden gates in a stone chamber. Then, using nothing but gravity, they'd divert water from upstream to fill the chamber, lifting the vessel like an aquatic elevator, the real stroke of genius. The locks were spaced at intervals matching natural contours, creating a staircase of water that climbed hills one gentle step at a time. Modern surveys reveal some sections had elevation changes as subtle as 1 foot per mile, a gradient so slight you'd barely feel the ascent. How did they achieve such precision without theodolites or GPS? Ancient records describe water leveling techniques using bronze gauges and marked poles, where teams stretched ropes across valleys to measure drop rates. But the true masterpiece was organizational. At the canal's peak construction under the Sui dynasty, over 5 million laborers worked in synchronized teams, some dredging silt, others quarrying stone, while specialized lock masters coordinated water flow using a proto-timekeeping system of incense sticks and drums. The canal's hidden innovation, its symbiotic relationship with nature. Unlike Roman aqueducts that conquered terrain with brute force, Chinese engineers adapted to the land. They widened existing rivers, linked natural lakes, and even incorporated seasonal floodplains into the design. In one legendary section near Shandong, builders diverted the Yellow River itself, a waterway notorious for shifting its course, by creating artificial meanders that stabilized its path for centuries. What's often overlooked is the canal's role as an ancient data network. Courier stations every 15 miles relayed messages via horseback, while grain barges doubled as postal carriers, creating an information superhighway that kept emperors informed across vast distances. The canal didn't just move goods, it moved ideas, cultures, and technologies, fueling innovations from papermaking to gunpowder distribution. Today, stretches of the canal still operate, their original stone revetments intact under layers of history. Modern engineers have found that some Ming-era lock mechanisms, with their interlocking wooden teeth and counterweights, are more durable than 20th century steel replacements. It's a humbling reminder, sometimes the most advanced solutions aren't about newer materials, but smarter designs, ones that listen to the land and respect the patience of time. Standing on the banks of the Grand Canal, you're not just seeing a waterway, you're witnessing the blueprint of a civilization that thought in centuries, not quarterly reports. A place where every bend holds a lesson, that true progress flows not from fighting nature, but from understanding its rhythm. And if that doesn't make you rethink what infrastructure really means, just wait until you hear how the Maya turned jungles into celestial observatories. 17 colossal stone heads stare across the Mexican jungle like silent giants frozen in time, each one a 10-foot-tall, 40-ton enigma carved by the Olmecs over 3,000 years ago. But the real mystery isn't their haunting expressions or intricate headdresses, it's how they got there at all. These basalt monoliths were quarried from the Tuxtla Mountains, a brutal 60-mile trek through swamps, rivers, and dense rainforest. No wheels, no draft animals, just sheer human ingenuity against impossible odds. The logistics boggle the mind. Moving a single head would require the combined strength of over 1,000 people dragging it on rollers, yet the Olmecs left no evidence of roads or sledges. Some archaeologists think they might have used rafts during flood seasons, floating the heads down river on networks of now vanished waterways. Others point to raised earthen causeways hidden beneath modern vegetation, spotted in aerial surveys. But the most tantalizing clue comes from the heads themselves. Several have deep grooves carved into their bases, possibly slots for ropes used in a complex lever and pivot system. Imagine teams rocking a head forward inch by inch, like tilting a refrigerator upstairs, while others slid logs beneath to prevent backsliding. It would have been a symphony of coordination, with chants or drums keeping the rhythm. What's often overlooked is the cultural audacity behind these efforts. These weren't just sculptures, they were likely portraits of rulers meant to awe subjects and rivals alike. The Olmecs could have chosen smaller stones or nearby quarries, but they didn't. They deliberately sourced the hardest basalt from distant volcanoes, as if the struggle to transport it was part of its power. Modern experiments show dragging a 40-ton block just 1 mile would take weeks of backbreaking labor. Now multiply that by 60, add jungle heat, mosquitoes, and the constant threat of jaguars. This wasn't just art, it was a statement carved in sweat and stone. And here's the spine-tingling question. If we've found 17 heads, how many more lie buried? In 2019, LiDAR scans revealed hundreds of previously unknown Olmec structures under the vegetation. Some researchers speculate there could be dozens of unfinished heads still hidden in quarries, abandoned when the civilization declined. Others whisper of even larger artifacts, perhaps throne platforms or zoomorphic altars still waiting beneath the mud. The Olmecs left no written records, just these stone whispers. But their legacy echoes in later Mesoamerican cultures. The Mayas' reverence for jade, the Aztecs' colossal calendar stone, all roads lead back to these first master carvers who looked at a mountain and saw a face. Standing beside one of these heads, you can almost hear the echoes of workers chanting, ropes creaking, logs rolling. It's a reminder that before empires, before writing, there were people who moved mountains to prove they could. And if that doesn't make you wonder what other impossible feats we've forgotten, just wait until you hear how the Polynesians navigated the Pacific using stars and seaweed. Petra's rose-red facades glow like embers at dawn, but the true fire here lies in the craftsmanship, entire temples and tombs chiseled with surgical precision into sheer sandstone cliffs. The treasury's iconic columns aren't built, they're revealed, painstakingly freed from the rock face grain by grain. What's staggering isn't just the artistry, but the engineering. These structures weren't carved top-down like a sculpture, but excavated inward like tunnels, with workers removing an estimated 40,000 tons of stone without a single metal chisel. The Nabateans' secret, a marriage of patience and physics. Archaeologists have found evidence of hardened bronze tools, but the real breakthrough was their understanding of sandstone's natural weaknesses. By soaking the rock with vinegar or sour grape juice acids that softened the mineral bonds, they could carve deeper with each strike. Then came the polishing, layers of quartz-rich sand applied with wet leather, buffing surfaces to a marble-like sheen that still repels wind erosion today. But the true genius lies in what they left behind. Look closely at the treasury's facade, and you'll notice subtle grooves channeling rainwater away from delicate details. This wasn't just decoration, it was preservation coded into the very art. Water management was Petra's lifeline. In a region where droughts could last years, the Nabateans carved over 200 cisterns into the cliffs, some capable of holding over 400,000 gallons. Their mastery of hydraulics bordered on alchemy. Terracotta pipes with precisely angled joints prevented leaks, while diversion dams forced flash floods through narrow canyons to scour silt from reservoirs. One aqueduct carved along a cliff face drops just 1 inch every 100 feet, a gradient so exact modern engineers suspect they used hanging water levels or weighted strings to maintain the slope. The unanswered question haunts researchers. How did they plan such intricate facades without blueprints? Recent laser scans revealed chisel marks following hidden guidelines, suggesting they might have projected designs using shadow boards or stretched cords. Some tombs even show mistakes, areas where workers adjusted angles mid-carving, hinting at a trial and error process refined over generations. Walking through Petra's Sick, the narrow gorge leading to the city, you're flanked by water channels carved at shoulder height. These weren't just utilities, they were calculators. The Nabateans could measure flow rates by counting how quickly floating debris traveled between marks, turning their entire city into a hydraulic computer. It's a reminder that ancient engineering wasn't just about moving stone, but mastering the rhythms of earth and water. And perhaps that's Petra's greatest lesson. True permanence isn't fought against nature, but carved in collaboration with it. Drenched in seawater for 2 millennia, the Antikythera Mechanism emerged from the depths as history's most baffling relic, a corroded bronze puzzle that rewrote our understanding of ancient ingenuity. When sponge divers first pulled it from a shipwreck off Crete in 1901, they assumed it was just another artifact. But decades later, X-rays revealed the truth. Inside that lump of greenish metal lay a labyrinth of 37 interlocking gears, some with teeth finer than a watchmaker's craft. This wasn't just a calendar or simple tool. It was a celestial computer capable of predicting lunar eclipses, tracking Olympic cycles, and mapping the erratic dance of planets across the sky, all with a turn of a hand crank. The sophistication is staggering. Tiny differential gears, once thought invented in the 1600s, calculated the moon's phases by compensating for its elliptical orbit. Engraved dials accounted for leap months, while pointers marked the positions of all 5 known planets. Recent CT scans even uncovered hidden inscriptions, an ancient user manual etched in Koine Greek, explaining how to read solar and lunar anomalies. For context, machinery this intricate wouldn't reappear in Europe until mechanical clocks 1,000 years later. So how did a civilization without precision tools or mass production achieve such micro-engineering? One clue lies in the mechanism's probable origins. Cicero wrote of a device built by Archimedes that reproduced the motions of the heavens, likely lost when Rome sacked Syracuse. The Antikythera Mechanism, dated to around 80 BC, may be its descendant, but the real breakthrough wasn't just the gears, it was the philosophy behind them. The Greeks saw the cosmos as a divine machine, its rhythms governed by mathematical harmony. This device was their attempt to mirror that cosmic order in bronze, a pocket universe where celestial mechanics became tangible. What chills modern researchers is how much knowledge vanished with it. The ship carrying the mechanism likely sank while transporting looted Greek treasures to Rome. Had it arrived, might Roman engineers have reverse-engineered it, sparking an industrial revolution 2 millennia early? Instead, the technology faded into legend, leaving later scholars to reinvent its principles from scratch. Today, reconstructions prove the mechanism worked with eerie accuracy, predicting eclipses within hours over decades. But the deeper question remains, was this a one-off marvel, or did dozens exist? The same shipwreck yielded statues and glassware luxury goods, suggesting this device wasn't unique. Perhaps dozens once hummed in temples and libraries, their gears whispering secrets of the stars to initiates. Holding a replica, you realize the Antikythera Mechanism isn't just an artifact. It's a ghost of a lost technological lineage, proof that our ancestors' brilliance ran deeper than ruins suggest. And if they could engineer this with hand files and intuition, what other wonders might still lie buried, waiting to shatter our assumptions once more? The Great Zimbabwe's walls rise from the earth like the bones of a forgotten giant, towering curves of fitted stone that have defied gravity for over 7 centuries without a drop of mortar. What's astonishing isn't just their endurance, but the physics woven into their design. Each wall bulges slightly inward as it climbs, a subtle curve that distributes weight like an arch, while granite blocks are stacked with interlocking grooves that shift minutely during temperature changes, preventing cracks. This isn't just masonry, it's a dialogue with the land where every stone was chosen for its shape and grain to fit its neighbor as tightly as a key in a lock. But the real genius lies in what these walls don't do. Unlike European castles that relied on thick, straight battlements, Zimbabwe's builders used serpentine layouts to confuse attackers. Narrow passageways funneled invaders into kill zones, while elevated platforms let defenders rain arrows from multiple angles. Even the city's placement was strategic, perched on a hill to catch breezes that cooled interiors while deterring siege engines. Modern engineers have tested replicas in wind tunnels, discovering the walls' rounded edges disrupt air currents, reducing erosion from dust storms. Its defense and climate control carved into one. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. These stones weren't quarried, they were harvested from nearby granite outcrops, split along natural fissures using nothing but fire and water. Workers would heat the rock with bonfires, then douse it with cold liquid to fracture clean slabs, a technique still used today, just with less poetry. Transporting them required no wheels or beasts of burden, just networks of log rollers and ropes woven from baobab bark. The most haunting detail, tool marks show consistent angles, suggesting a standardized training system where apprentices learn to strike stones at precise 45-degree impacts to avoid shattering. Great Zimbabwe wasn't alone in its brilliance. Across Africa, other civilizations engineered marvels we're only now appreciating. In Ethiopia, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela were carved downward from solid volcanic tuff, their roofs flush with the ground to hide them from invaders. Mali's Janae Geno developed sun-baked brick so durable, its 1,000-year-old granaries still stand in the Niger Delta. And in Tanzania, the ruins of Ngaruka reveal terraced fields fed by underground channels, a desert agriculture system so efficient, NASA studied it for Martian colony designs. What binds these feats together isn't just skill, but a philosophy modern builders are rediscovering: sustainability through symbiosis. Zimbabwe's walls breathe with the climate, Lalibela's churches emerge from the earth rather than conquer it, and Ngaruka's farmers treated water as a sacred thread woven through the land. These weren't monuments to dominance, but conversations with nature, ones where the answer wasn't, how high can we build, but how wisely. Perhaps that's the most humbling lesson. While European cathedrals crumble without constant restoration, Great Zimbabwe's dry stones still whisper their secrets to the wind. They remind us that the most enduring engineering isn't about forcing materials into submission, but listening to what they have to say. And in that silent exchange between human hands and ancient rock, we find a truth as solid as the walls themselves. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built on respect, not just mortar. The Minoan Palace of Knossos didn't just defy time, it defied climate. Walk its labyrinthine corridors in the height of a Cretan summer, and you'd feel something astonishing. A cool, steady breeze drifting through the halls, even as the Mediterranean sun blazed outside. This wasn't magic, it was engineering so advanced modern architects are only now catching up. The secret, a network of light wells and ventilation shafts that transformed the entire palace into a passive cooling system, harnessing natural airflow like a 3,000-year-old air conditioner. These weren't simple holes in the ceiling. The Minoans designed their light wells with precise angles to capture prevailing winds, funneling them through the palace's multi-level layout. Open courtyards acted as thermal chimneys, drawing hot air upward while cooler air rushed in through ground-level vents. Even the walls played a role. Their thickness and materials acted as thermal mass, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly at night. The result, a year-round indoor temperature that rarely strayed beyond a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius, all without a single watt of electricity. But how did they calculate this without modern tools? The answer might lie in the palace's most overlooked feature, its orientation. Knossos was carefully aligned to maximize seasonal winds, with key openings positioned to catch summer breezes from the north while blocking harsh winter gusts. Archaeologists have found evidence of adjustable wooden shutters and fabric screens, suggesting the Minoans fine-tuned airflow like master conductors. Some scholars believe they even used water features, shallow pools in courtyards, to add evaporative cooling, a technique still employed in desert architecture today. What's truly revolutionary is how these principles mirror 21st century sustainable design. Modern passive cooling systems, from Dubai's wind towers to Barcelona's bioclimatic buildings, echo the same fundamentals: orientation, thermal mass, and natural convection. The Minoans just happened to crack the code 4 millennia earlier. Yet the most haunting question isn't how they built it, it's why we forgot. When Knossos fell, its cooling secrets vanished with it. Medieval castles sweltered in stuffy darkness, and Victorian factories relied on noisy fans, as if humanity had to relearn what the Minoans already mastered. Perhaps that's the real lesson of Knossos, that progress isn't always linear, and sometimes the most advanced solutions are hidden in the ruins of those who came before us. Standing in the palace's central court today, you can still feel the whisper of that ancient breeze, a ghost of ingenuity that refuses to fade. It's a reminder that sustainability isn't a modern invention, but a rediscovery of the harmony our ancestors once knew. And if that doesn't make you rethink what primitive really means, just imagine what other forgotten wisdom might still be waiting in the dust. The Easter Island Moai don't just stare from their hillsides, they silently mock every assumption about what ancient people could achieve. Each of these towering figures, some weighing over 80 tons, was somehow transported up to 11 miles across jagged volcanic terrain without wheels, animals, or even sturdy trees for rollers. For centuries, this mystery fueled wild theories, from alien intervention to lost superhuman strength, but the truth might be even more astonishing. Recent experiments by archaeologists and local Rapa Nui volunteers suggest the statues could have walked to their platforms, rocked forward in a rhythmic sway using nothing but ropes and human coordination. Picture this: teams on either side of a moai pull ropes tied to its base, tilting the statue onto one edge while others steady its forward momentum. With each coordinated tug, the massive stone figure inches ahead in a lurching dance, its center of gravity shifting just enough to prevent toppling. When tested with concrete replicas, this method proved eerily effective. A small group could move a 10-ton statue several hundred yards in under an hour. But here's the catch: the real moai are up to 8 times heavier, and the island's terrain is littered with abandoned statues that likely fell mid-journey. This raises a haunting question: did the Rapa Nui perfect a technique we've only partially reconstructed? Or was their true method something even more ingenious? Alternative theories abound. Some researchers point to parallel grooved tracks worn into the bedrock, suggesting sledges or log rollers might have been used before deforestation. Others propose a ladder system where stones were flipped end over end like a moving wheel, but the most compelling clue comes from oral traditions. Elders speak of the statues being guided by mana, or spiritual energy, a metaphor, perhaps, for the collective focus of hundreds of workers chanting in unison, turning back-breaking labor into a sacred ritual. The Moi's journey wasn't the island's only engineering marvel. Rapa Nui's ancient road system, though often overlooked, reveals meticulous planning. These paths, some 30 feet wide, were paved with crushed red scoria to reduce friction, while their gentle gradients suggest an intimate understanding of weight distribution. Even more impressive, the platforms or ahu where the Moi stood. These weren't simple stone slabs, they were seismic buffers, built with rubble-filled cores that absorbed earthquakes like modern shock absorbers. What's often forgotten is the human cost of this ambition. Soil studies show the island's once lush palm forests vanished as statue production peaked, likely felled for transport materials. Yet the Rapa Nui didn't collapse from ecological folly, as myths suggest. Instead, they adapted, shifting from megaliths to smaller stone carvings when resources waned. Their legacy isn't a cautionary tale of hubris, but a testament to resilience. Easter Island's secrets extend beyond the Moai. Recent LiDAR scans have revealed hidden garden systems beneath the surface, where crops were grown in circular stone enclosures called manavai to trap moisture and protect against wind. Underground tunnels channeled freshwater from volcanic craters to coastal villages, while stone fish traps along the shore demonstrate mastery of tidal patterns. This wasn't a society obsessed solely with statues. It was a civilization that engineered survival in one of the planet's most isolated spots. Standing before a Moai today, you're not just seeing a stone giant, you're witnessing the ghost of a collective dream. Every groove in its surface, every angle of its base, whispers of generations who refused to be limited by what seemed impossible. And perhaps that's the real lesson of Easter Island, that human ingenuity doesn't always leave behind blueprints or manuals. Sometimes it leaves riddles not to frustrate us, but to remind us how much wonder still waits half buried in the earth. The Library of Celsus wasn't just a storehouse of scrolls, it was a symphony in stone, engineered to bend sound itself to its will. Step into its grand facade today, and you'll notice something unsettling. Whisper a word near one of its intricately carved niches, and the sound travels with eerie clarity to the opposite side of the building, as if the walls themselves are eavesdropping. This wasn't accidental. Every curve, every recess in the library's 2,000-year-old design was calculated to amplify and direct voices with the precision of a modern concert hall. How did Roman architects achieve this without microphones or soundboards? The secret lies in the geometry. The library's facade is lined with staggered niches and columns that create a series of reflective surfaces, bouncing sound waves in deliberate patterns. Imagine throwing a ball into a room lined with angled mirrors. It would ricochet in predictable paths. The library's designers applied this same principle to whispers, using concave surfaces to focus sound and projecting it outward like an ancient megaphone. Even the materials played a role. The polished marble walls absorbed fewer sound waves than rough stone, allowing voices to travel farther without distortion. But the real stroke of genius was the library's multi-tiered design. Unlike flat walls that scatter sound randomly, Celsus's stepped facade created a sound ladder, where higher frequencies could climb vertically while lower tones resonated horizontally. Archaeoacoustics experts have mapped these pathways using laser scans, revealing that certain spots in the library functioned as natural amplifiers stand-in one, and your voice would suddenly carry to the far corners of the courtyard. Some scholars believe this was intentional, allowing scholars to share ideas without shouting, or perhaps even enabling orators to deliver speeches without straining their voices. The unanswered question how they tested their designs. Without oscilloscopes or digital models, Roman builders likely relied on trial and error, refining angles over generations until the walls sang correctly. Recent experiments with replica niches suggest they might have used water-filled bowls to visualize sound wave patterns, ripples in liquid mirroring how whispers would dance across stone. What's haunting is how much we've lost. Modern libraries prioritize silence, but Celsus embraced sound as a tool, weaving it into the very fabric of learning. In a world before printing presses, where knowledge lived in spoken words as much as written ones, this wasn't just architecture, it was intellectual alchemy. Standing in its shadow today, you can almost hear the echoes of ancient debates, still trapped in the stone, waiting for someone to listen. Descending into Chand Bayori feels like stepping into an inverted pyramid of perfect geometry. 3,500 symmetrical steps cascading 13 stories deep, each one a testament to an ancient understanding of water that borders on reverence. Built over 1,000 years ago in Rajasthan's arid heartland, this isn't just a well, it's a subterranean cathedral to hydration, where every zigzagging staircase and precisely angled terrace was engineered to coax every last drop from the reluctant earth. The deeper you go, the cooler the air becomes, the walls radiating moisture collected during rare rains like the breath of a sleeping giant. What's staggering isn't just the scale, but the foresight. Chand Bayori steps aren't merely functional, they're mathematical. Their zigzag pattern slows evaporation by minimizing direct sunlight exposure, while the staggered design creates microclimates where cooler air sinks, condensing atmospheric humidity into droplets that trickle down to replenish the reservoir. Even the carvings on the walls serve a purpose. Deities and geometric motifs aren't just decoration, they're erosion control, breaking up wind currents that might otherwise scour moisture from the surface. But Chand Bayori is just one thread in a vast hydrological tapestry. Across India, over 3,000 documented stepwells reveal regional adaptations to water scarcity. In Gujarat's Rani Kai Vav, inverted temple spires double as rainwater funnels, channeling monsoon deluges through filtration layers of sand and charcoal before the water settles in pristine pools. Maharashtra's stepped ponds feature water courts with tiered accessibility, deeper levels for drought reserves, upper basins for daily use, a liquid zoning system that predates modern urban planning by centuries. The real marvel, these structures are more than relics. In villages like Adalaj, farmers still rely on stepwells during brutal summers, their knowledge of water tables passed down through generations. Modern hydrologists have discovered that many stepwells tap into hidden, fossil water, aquifers, ancient underground reserves, replenished over millennia with intake shafts positioned at precise angles to avoid silt contamination. Some even function as natural cooling systems, with temperature differentials between upper and lower levels creating airflow that ventilates nearby buildings. What's haunting is how these solutions echo globally. In Iran's Qanats, underground channels snake for miles to deliver mountain spring water to desert cities without a single drop lost to evaporation. Yemen's mud brick skyscrapers in Shibam feature rooftop rainwater collectors that drain into interior cisterns, a vertical stepwell in reverse. Even the Anasazi cliff dwellings of the American Southwest positioned hand-carved basins to capture runoff from rare storms, their designs eerily similar to Chand Bayori's terraces. The lesson etched into these stones isn't just about conservation, it's about conversation. These builders didn't fight their environment, they listened to it, turning constraints into innovations. While modern cities pump groundwater faster than rains can replenish it, these ancient wells whisper a radical idea that the best engineering doesn't conquer nature but collaborates with it. Standing at the bottom of Chand Bayori, where the last step kisses the water's surface, you're not just seeing a well. You're staring into a mirror, reflecting a question we've never needed to answer more urgently. How do we quench our thirst without draining the earth dry? Buried beneath the quiet hills of Zhejiang province, the Longquan Caves form a subterranean realm so vast, so inexplicably precise, that they've been called China's underground pyramids. 24 caverns sprawl across 30,000 square meters, each one hand carved into solid sandstone with walls so smooth they ripple like frozen waves under torchlight. But here's what chills archaeologists. Not a single scroll, carving, or folk legend mentions their construction. It's as if 2,000 years ago, someone assembled an army of laborers, excavated enough stone to fill 1,000 Olympic pools, then vanished without leaving a whisper of why. The precision defies logic. Pillars spaced at near-perfect intervals brace ceilings with mathematical symmetry, while chisel marks run in uniform parallel lines, suggesting tools far more advanced than the iron implements of the Han Dynasty. Even more baffling, the walls and ceilings slope at exact 7-degree angles, a consistency impossible to achieve without standardized measuring systems. Modern engineers have calculated that removing this much rock would have required a workforce of thousands laboring around the clock for decades. Yet there's no evidence of debris piles, no nearby quarries filled with spoil, and no signs of settlement large enough to support such an operation. The stones simply disappeared. Some theories hint at imperial extravagance. The caves lie near the birthplace of Emperor Wu of Han, a ruler notorious for colossal projects. Could these chambers have been a secret palace or mining operation scrubbed from history after his death? Others point to the walls' acoustic properties. Certain chambers amplify whispers eerily, leading to speculation they were ritual spaces for oracle ceremonies. Then there's the water mystery. Despite the region's high water table, the caves remain perfectly dry, their floors etched with drainage channels that still function flawlessly after millennia. But the most haunting clue might be the ceiling patterns. Swirling tool marks mirror those found in ancient Chinese bronze casting, suggesting the diggers replicated metalworking techniques in stone. Were they practicing some lost art of subterranean sculpture, or was this a proving ground for technologies we've yet to understand? Local farmers stumbled upon the caves in 1992 when draining a pond revealed a hidden entrance. Since then, not a single artifact has been found. No tools, no pottery shards, not even a charcoal smudge from a worker's torch, just silence and stone. Standing in those echoing halls, you're left with a gnawing question. What kind of project demands such perfection, then erases all memory of itself? The Longquan Caves aren't just a construction marvel, they're a riddle carved in rock, daring us to reconsider how much history truly lies buried beneath our feet. Rising from the Guatemalan jungle like stone sentinels, Tikal's pyramids don't just scrape the sky, they converse with it. Each towering structure doubles as a celestial clock, its staircases and corners aligning with solstice sunrises and equinox shadows with precision that would make modern astronomers double-check their calculators. Take Temple 4, the tallest at 70 meters. On the spring equinox, the sun climbs directly over its eastern facade, casting a shadow that bisects the grand plaza below like a sundial's gnomon. But this isn't just one lucky alignment. Every major temple in Tikal plays a role in this astronomical ballet, tracking Venus cycles, lunar nodes, and even the elusive wobble of Earth's axis known as precession. How did the Maya achieve such accuracy without telescopes or written numerals? The secret lies in their patience. Generations of astronomer priests meticulously recorded celestial events on bark paper codices, noting patterns over centuries. They didn't need high-tech tools because they had time observing the slow dance of stars across lifetimes, refining their calculations with each passing cycle. Their long count calendar, spanning over 5,000 years, could predict eclipses within hours, and their Venus tables were accurate too, within 2 hours per 500 years. But the real stroke of genius was architectural. The Maya engineered their pyramids as observational platforms. Temple 1's summit aligns with Temple 2 across the plaza to frame the rising Pleiades, marking the start of the agricultural season. Meanwhile, the Lost World Complex's radial pyramid casts triangular shadows during solstices that precisely intersect with smaller temples, creating a stone and light calendar. Some researchers believe they even used the pyramid's interior chambers as camera obscuras, projecting celestial events onto back walls through carefully placed apertures. What's often overlooked is the sheer physicality of their methods. Climbing these steep staircases at dawn with nothing but a notched stick to measure angles, the Maya merged brute endurance with delicate precision. Their observatories weren't domed buildings but open platforms where priests could feel the wind and hear the jungle's breath while tracking stars, a reminder that their astronomy wasn't detached science but a dialogue with the living cosmos. The haunting question isn't how they built these alignments, but why they invested such effort. For the Maya, time wasn't linear, it was a sacred spiral where celestial events mirrored earthly ones. A Venus rise might signal war, a solstice might dictate crop cycles. Their pyramids weren't just calendars, they were bridges between realms where the mathematical and the mystical became one. Standing atop Temple 4 today, watching dawn light pierce the jungle exactly as it did 1,200 years ago, you realize these stones aren't ruins. They're still ticking. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just push the boundaries of ancient engineering, it shatters them entirely. Nestled in southeastern Turkey, this 12,000-year-old sanctuary predates Stonehenge by 6 millennia and the Great Pyramid by 7. Yet its sophistication mocks the very idea of primitive hunter-gatherers. Picture this: 20-ton limestone pillars, some towering 16 feet tall, arranged in circular formations with the precision of a master architect. Each one is carved with razor-sharp depictions of scorpions, foxes, and vultures, artistry so detailed it would be impressive even with modern chisels. But here's the twist: the people who built this had no metal tools, no pottery, not even permanent settlements. They weren't supposed to be capable of this. The mystery deepens when you examine the construction. These pillars aren't just stacked, they're slotted into bedrock-carved sockets, locked together with stone ridges that distribute weight like a prehistoric IKEA manual. Archaeologists have found evidence that the builders used flint tools to smooth surfaces to a near polish, then transported these megaliths from quarries over half a mile away without wheels or domesticated animals. Some researchers speculate they might have rolled them on log sledges during wet seasons, leveraging mud slickness to reduce friction. But the real stunner: the entire complex was deliberately buried around 8000 BC, filled with thousands of tons of soil and rubble as if hiding its own existence. Why does this rewrite history? Conventional wisdom claimed monumental architecture emerged only after agriculture, when surplus food allowed specialized labor. Göbekli Tepe flips that script. Its creators were nomads, yet they organized labor on a scale rivaling later city-states. The site's alignment offers another clue. Its concentric rings point to celestial events, suggesting an advanced understanding of astronomy millennia before the Babylonians mapped the stars. Some carvings even depict what might be comets or constellations, hinting at a catastrophic event like the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a theory that a cosmic collision triggered a mini ice age around this time. The implications ripple outward. If Göbekli Tepe's builders had such skills, what else might they, or their contemporaries, have created? In Indonesia, Gunung Padang's megalithic layers might date back even earlier, while Japan's underwater Yonaguni structures hint at lost coastal civilizations. Even the Amazon's recently discovered lost cities challenge our timeline, revealing sprawling urban networks where textbooks claimed only tribal villages existed. Standing among Göbekli Tepe's pillars, you're left with a humbling thought. Human ingenuity might not have unfolded in a straight line. Perhaps knowledge rose, fell, and was rediscovered in cycles we're only beginning to trace. The stones don't just question our past, they ask how many other chapters of history are still buried, waiting to rewrite the story we thought we knew. The Appian Way wasn't just a road, it was a multi-layered masterpiece of Roman ingenuity, built to outlast eternity. Stretching from Rome to Brindisi, this 2,000-year-old highway features a foundation so meticulously engineered, modern asphalt roads crumble in comparison. Dig beneath its surface and you'll find a stratified sandwich of crushed stone, mortar, and volcanic ash cement, all crowned with interlocking basalt slabs so tightly fitted, weeds still struggle to sprout between them. But the real stroke of genius lies in its camber, the subtle upward curve of the roadbed that channels rainwater into side ditches, preventing erosion. This wasn't just construction, it was hydrological warfare against time itself. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, the Inca were solving the same problems with radically different methods. Their 40,000-kilometer road network, strung like a stone ribbon across the Andes, ignored straight lines in favor of nature's contours. Instead of fighting mountains, they embraced them, building staircases into cliffs and suspension bridges from woven grass that swayed with earthquakes rather than resisting them. Their secret, a foundation of crushed gravel that drained like a sieve, topped with cobblestones laid at precise angles to disperse the weight of llama caravans. When modern engineers tested replicas, they found Inca roads actually stabilized during tremors, the stones shifting slightly before settling back into place, like a self-healing puzzle. What's baffling isn't just their individual brilliance, but the eerie parallels between distant cultures. Both systems used way stations spaced a day's travel apart, Roman mutations and Inca tambos offering fresh horses or porters. Both employed military couriers who could relay messages faster than any single traveler, the Roman cursus publicus and Inca chasqui runners. And both understood that roads weren't just paths, but psychological tools, symbols of control that united empires. The Incas even painted their roads white in moonlit stretches, creating ghostly guideways visible to nighttime travelers. The lingering question, how much knowledge flowed along these very routes? While Rome's engineering feats were documented in Vitruvius scrolls, the Inca left no written records, just oral traditions, and the roads themselves as textbooks. Some scholars speculate that Phoenician traders or other seafaring cultures might have shared core concepts across continents. Others argue it's proof of convergent innovation, that great minds worldwide faced similar challenges and arrived at similar solutions, separated by oceans but united by necessity. Perhaps the most humbling lesson lies in their longevity. Modern highways require constant repair, yet sections of the Appian Way still bear traffic after 2 millennia. Inca staircases cling to mountainsides despite centuries of neglect. These builders understood something we've forgotten. True durability isn't about brute strength, but harmony with the forces that seek to destroy. Their roads didn't fight gravity or water, they invited them in, then outsmarted them. Standing on these ancient pavements today, you're not just walking on stone. You're tracing the fingerprints of engineers who thought in centuries, not fiscal quarters who saw roads not as expenses, but as living arteries of civilization. And in their silent endurance, they ask us a question. If we built for permanence instead of profit, what legacies might we leave for the archaeologists of the year 4024? These ancient marvels aren't just relics, they're living lessons carved in stone, flowing through water, and etched into the very bones of our planet. Each of these 26 wonders shatters the myth that innovation is a straight line from primitive to advanced. The truth, great minds have always existed, armed with nothing but observation, patience, and an unshakable determination to leave their mark on eternity. From the self-healing concrete of Rome to the earthquake-defying walls of Machu Picchu, these civilizations didn't just build structures, they engineered conversations with nature itself. They didn't have computers, but they had generations of skywatchers tracking celestial patterns. They lacked steel, but mastered geometry to move mountains. No textbooks, just trial and error refined over centuries until perfection emerged from the rock. What's truly humbling is how much we're still learning from them. Modern architects study the Parthenon's optical illusions to design skyscrapers that appear straighter to the human eye. Hydrologists replicate Inca terrace systems to combat soil erosion. Even NASA analyzes Maya water storage techniques for future Mars colonies. These weren't just ancient solutions, they're blueprints for sustainable living in an age where resources grow scarce. Yet for every mystery we decode, 10 more emerge. How many lost technologies lie buried beneath jungle canopies or ocean floors? What other civilizations achieved brilliance without leaving written records? The more we uncover, the clearer it becomes. History isn't a ladder we've climbed, but a spiral where knowledge blooms, fades, and resurfaces when we're ready to understand it. So the next time you walk past a storm drain or adjust your thermostat, remember, you're touching the echoes of ideas born millennia ago, that sidewalk beneath your feet. It whispers the ghost of the Appian Way. The breeze through your window carries the same principles that cooled Knossos. Our world is built on the shoulders of these unsung geniuses, and their greatest gift isn't in the stones they left behind, but in the question they force us to ask. If they could achieve so much with so little, what's stopping us from dreaming just as boldly today? Now it's your turn. Which of these ancient innovations left you awestruck? Was it the precision of the Great Pyramid, or perhaps Petra's hydraulic secrets? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're hungry for more stories where history and mystery collide, hit that subscribe button. The past isn't finished surprising us